Hello, everyone. We're here with Coach Tillet. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome, awesome. So you're a Virginia native?
Virginia native, born and
Okay.
raised. Yep.
So if you were to describe a Virginia basketball player, what would it be and why?
Mm.
One word.
Yeah, one word.
One word.
You're gonna get me on one word. Uh Tough.
Tough.
Yeah. I think
Hmm.
they're tough. I think they've, played in, lots of high level games and have been exposed to lots of things just being in the DMV area or even if you go down to the beach area or you go different parts of Virginia, I think you're gonna find tough players all around.
Hmm. Best high school player you saw around your time there,
Well,
boys or girls?
I coached against Monica Wright, so I don't know how much better it gets. Sometimes people mistakenly think I coached her because I did coach at her high school after she graduated. And I'm always quick to correct them. No, I only had the pleasure of coaching against her,
The
which is a
joy.
very difficult feat. But she just had an incredible career, obviously, Forest Park, Virginia, and then for the Minnesota Lynx. And yeah, she was a really, really talented young player. And loved the game and gave back to the community at the Boys and Girls Club and in lots of different spaces.
Mhm. If you were to use one word to describe your coaching style, what would it be and why?
Whew. I think educational, I'm a teacher at heart. I started my career as a teacher. And so I think we're always trying to learn. And one of the things, one of our staff said to me the other day that she thinks one of our strengths is that we figure out how to let players play without fear. And I thought she did such a great job articulating that. That's something we're definitely always trying to do because you're going to fail within our sport, but it doesn't have to be a negative response or negative experience. You're just learning another way to do something. So I think we approach it from a really, educational standpoint and the whole person, right? Not just about basketball, but about educational experience. And we hope to be connected with our student athletes for the rest of their lives and ours.
So you played your ball at William and Mary.
I did.
Um, Tell me, looking back, one positive and one negative side from your playing days to today with today's student athlete. Do you think it was easier playing back then than now? Do you think
Mm,
that the distractions nowadays make it harder to focus on basketball now? So just tell
mm.
me about your time there and you looking back at like much better to play then or
Yeah.
much better to play now?
Great question. I think, the positive back then, would probably remain true for most women today is that my teammates, right? And the coaching staff, but sometimes I think what we think of as the coach's job is so, so important. Really, it's do we create an environment where they can form relationships with their teammates that are going to last and stand the test of time? And it's my teammates that I think about when I think about my time at William and Mary and what we were able to accomplish together. And they're still the ones that reach out and, are looking to see what we'll do at St. Louis and watching our Longwood games on TV when I was there and stuff like that. I do think the challenge of social media is different and wonder, what would we have been like in that space, myself and my teammates, having to navigate that. We didn't have to navigate that. And just throughout the course of my career, it started with when newspapers started going online and people could comment. And I remember being a young head coach in Virginia and people commenting on how we were coaching our team or anonymously, right? We didn't know who was saying what. But then now it's, just completely in your face what people think about your game or your team. And so I think that's definitely a more challenging aspect that student athletes have to deal with now that we didn't realize at the time that we probably had it better in that sense because people were saying those things about our teams. The flip side of the positive of that, though, is that people are talking about women's basketball a lot more now than they were when I was playing. And I think that's a real positive and something that I want to continue to help promote the game.
So you mentioned your time at the high school level. I started at the high school level myself and then I did AAU. Um, I had talked to the coach from LaSalle, Coach Mount, and he was saying that he thought it was a big positive, having started at that level, because now that he's a Division 1 head coach, he had the experience of making all the choices and decisions.
Yeah.
And, I think sometimes, and I could be wrong, a lot of young, head coaches or first time head coaches struggle because they've never had to make those calls.
Yeah.
They never had to look down the bench and make a decision. And it's no knock against them, but
Right.
it is difficult. I think it's as you go up in the shares and then you're at the top share making those calls, it's a whole nother monster, So I guess tell me about your time there. Virginia, hotbed of talent. Um, what did you learn during that time? And looking back at that now, do you feel like you have an edge?
Great question. So first of all, that was just an incredible time in my career. 10 years as a head coach in high school. I remember trying to break in the college game, and coaches saying, yeah, I'm really interested in you as a coach. You just don't have any recruiting experience. And I would flip and say, what do you mean I don't have recruiting experience? Like, I'm on the other side. Like, I have seen what has worked and what hasn't worked. And so I remember feeling that. So for all those high school coaches watching, like, you can break in if you want to break in. I think that my time coaching there is where I grew up as a coach. And to your point of having those opportunities to make those decisions, to make those mistakes, right? Games that we could have won because maybe if I had done a couple different things differently. We have this saying in our program, anywhere we lead, that if we lose by 5, it's on us, like as a coach. Like, we could have done something to help the game flip from a 5-point game. So I think just, yeah, fond memories of growing up, tons of talent. I still keep in touch with those women that I coached, and so many of them are still a part of my journey. One of my favorite moments last year at Longwood was a bunch of them came back to watch one of the games at Longwood, and we stayed after the game, and they're getting on my case. We actually had won that game by a good margin, and they're like, last possession, Tillet, you're still yelling at your team to do this or that. And that's the teacher, right? That's the coach, side of me saying, well, we're still trying to get better every single time that we play until the season is over. So I think it was absolutely, a huge influence on my career. And I don't know that I could have known at the time that it would prepare me so well to lead in college. Now, of course, when I switched from high school to college, there was a lot to learn in that space. But from the coaching standpoint alone, I was very prepared and ready to lead a team and lead a program because I had done it for so long at that level.
Mhm. Great answer, coach. Great answer. So you spent your time also on the pro level. You were a scout. Uh, I also was a journalist, young journalist in college, and my first quote unquote beat jobs. I used to work for a magazine called Slam,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I did women's basketball, college basketball pro. Amazing time, amazing time. Like on a college side, like it was like when Alyssa Thomas and those guys are pretty good. And then on a pro level, you got Angel,
Mm.
legit, Odyssey Sims is big on the college side. I was connecting with her, Sue Bird, Glory Johnson, all those players in that time. So the game was, to me, it was really good during that time. But just tell me about your time in Atlanta, because it seems like you're working more on the front office side of things. And so you're out there really finding talent. So two-part question about that time. And looking back, was there a player you saw that you're like, man, I saw this girl and I felt like she was legit. She would have been a perfect fit for us, and we didn't pick her, and she came back to haunt us. Like, we regret that one.
Yeah. So my time with the Atlanta Dream was a contracted scout. So it started as like a guest scout and then evolved into a more permanent position for a season. And it's funny because I a little bit, had to learn on the fly, right? Like, what are they looking for from me? So that's what a lot of the WNBA teams would do, is hire coaches, often college coaches. I wasn't a college coach at the time. A college coach gave me the first opportunity that I had, and then I earned more. So they hire them. So I was doing it at the Mystics games, but for the Dream. So it was great for me in terms of learning scouting, because in high school, the biggest difference for me between high school and college is the access to film, right? In high school, I was driving around and trading literal tapes with coaches and, trying to get these deals. I'll give you this if you give me that, so you can scout, right? And then traveling all over the state to watch live games. Well, in college, of course, we can't do the live games, but we have access to everything we want to watch at any level. Well, in the pros, they have all that too. So what they need is somebody on the ground that's going to get play calls, signals, things that might not get picked up on TV. And so I had to learn how to do all of that. And then you go back and watch the game and add anything else. There's actually a really funny story about this. So I'm at a game. It's probably like my 4th or 5th time doing it. And they come down and they say, you're Rebecca Tillet. And I'm thinking, who would even know me here? I'm a high school coach, just sitting on the end of the floor at the place that I've always sat. Well, apparently the scouting that had been going on with the Atlanta Dream and the counterpart who would work for the Mystics at the Atlantic Dream got moved up to higher seats, right? So they were like, they're not going to give an unfair advantage, right? They're going to move me up. So they moved me up to like a higher seat. And I'm a teacher. I follow directions, right? I go up to the higher seats. It's not a packed game. So I'm like looking around like, I can't get the calls here. I can't get the signals, which is of course what they wanted me not to get the signal. So I like looked around. I asked the security, I was like, can I move down? They're like, sure, go ahead. They don't know, what I'm doing. Move down. So I moved down. They come back and get me. And they say, are you Rebecca Tillet? Yes, you need to move up. And I'm like, okay, I'm really like, but again, I feel like, how would anyone even know me in this place? So that's actually a story. I don't know if I've ever told anyone like on a podcast or anything, that story, but yeah, move her up, get her up. And of course, then I was worried, am I going to even do my job effectively now? I can't get the signals. So that was a really, really funny moment. But in terms of talent, so they weren't relying on me for talent scouting, just literally play calls, anything that I could pick up schematically that the opponent was doing that might be able to help them. Because of course they were scouting the game as well with their staff, but could they get anything else? But I do just remember the feeling of watching the players on that level and their talent. And then there were so many successful players from the DMV that I had coached against that were then coming through that time that I was scouting. Tiara Ruffin Pratt, so fun. I coached against her in high school and then watching her play pro. So yeah, I think just that opportunity of getting to watch them from the high school level and then compete at the pro level.
Yeah, Tiara was good. I think she went to UNC, right?
Yep.
She was legit. She definitely
She was legit.
Well, Coach, in all honesty, you were really good at what you do, which is why they moved you all the way up.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe it's
the other person was really good.
Yeah, they had their eye out for you guys. Second you walk through the door, that's for sure. So first college job, you're at IUP.
Yes.
One of my mentors, he coaches in the PSAC. He coaches at Clarion, but before he was at Millersville.
Yeah.
So I'm fairly familiar with the PSAC, and I tell people all the time, having coached first on the Division III level myself, and my mentors being at different levels, PSAC's a good conference.
Agreed.
Teams in the PSAC that will beat some Division I teams.
Absolutely.
No doubt about it. I'm very certain that certain Division I programs are doing all they can to not play certain PSAC teams. It's like, like when Ashland they're not in the PSAC, but when Ashland was really good, it's just like, I asked the Ashland coach, like, be honest with me, are they ducking you? And she's like, yes, they're ducking me. I know they're ducking you. I know it. So tell me about your time in the PSAC. Good conference, good resources. Tell me about that time, why you felt it was the appropriate time for you to make that jump.
Yeah, PSEC's great. And I had crash course education in basketball in Western Pennsylvania, which is great. We actually have a young woman on our team right now from Pittsburgh here in St. Louis. So I think the first was just learning the league and the WPIAL, and there's all the PSEC, all the terminology that you have to learn. Really, really good basketball being played up there. And then of course IUP has the facilities that rival many Division I arenas. So that's something that's a draw too. For me, I had actually turned down a job maybe 2 years before because it wasn't the right timing for our family. And then after I turned it down, I was like, what was I doing? I really want this opportunity to coach in college. Why would I turn down an opportunity? And so like many people talk about, people will say it's who sometimes that statement goes a little too far. I think it's people see your work, right? And so when Tom McConnell got the job, Richard Fortune, who's still in Virginia, he's an athletic director in Virginia, he had recruited some of my players when I was a high school coach, and he recommended me to Tom McConnell. And then of course it's up to you as an individual to, have a good interview and build a good relationship. But Richard Fortune is actually the reason that I was, in front of Tom McConnell to get that opportunity. And then it was great because Tom was starting his first year as a head coach at that university. He'd been a head coach other times. And, as I'm going through right now with our staff, there's so much to learn and you want to do everything at once, and you can't do everything at once. You've got to really follow the path and the journey. This was a great time because he gave me a lot of responsibility, allowed me to kind of get my hands in a lot of different spaces within the Division II coaching model. And I learned so much during that year. We had a good team. Tom's retiring this year and actually is a really great leader of young women and men. He's coached on the men's side as well, but just cares deeply about people. And he and I connected on that right away. And that was great. So for my first college experience, to realize I didn't have to change who I was as a nurturer, as a teacher, as a carer of people, right? I could still be that same person and be intense and love at the same time. And Tom was a great role model for that. And that's where I met our current associate head coach, Ryan Micheletti. She and I were assistants on that staff together. And we're now at our 4th university together. So, sometimes you meet people along the way on the journey. And then the women on that team, they were so embracing of the newness of what we were bringing. And that doesn't happen every time. I've been fortunate that it's happened every time to me. But I know that doesn't always happen for all coaches. So it was a great year for me to learn and grow. And then I got that next opportunity at the Naval Academy.
Pros and cons, Division II versus Division I.
Yeah.
Give me a pro and give me a con.
Yeah. The pro is, it's still great high level basketball. Like anybody that thinks that it's not, sorry, but you're wrong. It's high level basketball. And you can really still have an incredible experience. I think the con is you want as much time as the best players that I've worked with over my career, they just want as much time as possible to be poured into by the staff. And the rules aren't the same at each level, right? So you get more time with your team, and the summer's a great example. I mean, our teams can be with us in the summer for up to 8 weeks, taking classes and getting, basketball instruction at the Division I level, which is not exactly the same at Division II and Division III. So I think that would be the con.
So you mentioned your next stop was Navy. It can be considered a pretty tough job at times due to the commitment of service.
Yeah.
My brother's in the Navy, Daniel, I love you.
Thank you for your service, Daniel.
So with that being said, you guys excel. You went to the WNIT, really solid program in the Patriot. You were at RC there too, as well. Tell me about the process, like the recruiting process. How'd you make it work, and what made Navy? What was your thing, like that bit of special thing that you had, that you think gave you an edge during that time on other programs of your conference?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things. I think one, you talk about being team first and being unselfish and, caring about your team. Well, when you work at the academy, you don't like those things that we're teaching as coaches, they're already being taught on the military side. So they're already walking into your practice ready to give completely to the team, to the unit. So that's interesting in that you don't spend, I think, as much time as you do other places teaching that skill set that's so critical for teams to be successful. One thing we did have to look out for is the leadership model that they follow outside of the team setting doesn't always, it can't apply when you come into the team setting. Because, for example, you might have a freshman walk in your program that's ready to start and lead your program. But in the academy setting, it's very, you know, hierarchical about where you fit and what you've learned so far in order to be ready to lead. So sometimes we had those challenges, you know, when they're outside of our locker room, they're supposed to be, you know, communicating with the seniors a certain type of way. And then when you get in the locker room or on the court, you want them to say, hey, you need to get that coverage, sprint to your defensive coverage. So those were unique challenges that I think are unique to an academy versus somewhere else. In terms of recruiting, the academy has so much to offer. And in terms of your future after college, there's so much that is promised to you if you make that commitment to the Navy. I think sometimes you have to figure out, are the women that you're recruiting, do they want the academy more than they want Division I basketball? Because the best ones want both, right? And those are the ones you're looking for. They're interested in the academy. They want to serve their country. They also are extremely passionate about being the most successful team in the Patriot League. And I think that's something you had to really think about in the recruiting process, because if someone decides not to play basketball at Navy, they're still on full scholarship. So you kind of got to keep them coming back for more in the program. And that's not the same at, you know, any other Division I university. If they stop playing, they don't have their scholarship at that university anymore. So that was a unique challenge.
Mm. As a coach, what are your non-negotiables?
I think caring about the team is a non-negotiable. You know, last year, one of the things that our team said so much is, what are you willing to do for a teammate? Right? What are you willing to do on the court, off the court, and caring for one another? That's really important. I don't work well with people that are very, very self-focused. Now there's a difference. You can be driven, you can want to achieve individual goals, and we want those type of people in our program. You also have to care deeply about what the team is trying to do. And we think that both those things can move in unison to high levels. And then, you know, people that take responsibility. I just work really, really well with those type of people. If you make a mistake, we all do. I make mistakes, right? Just own it. And let's figure out how to do it better the next time, whether that's on the court or off the court. So not big on, you know, blaming someone else or complaining, or that doesn't work well in our team environment.
Mm-hmm. You're big on women empowerment. That's one of your things.
Yeah.
We talked about pro level. You have experience at the pro level. You've coached high school, you've coached Division II, you've coached Division I. I used to have conversations with my players on different levels as well, and still have conversations with them in regards to, I could ask a player, for example, did you watch Natalie Achama last night? Like, did you see you know, Courtney Williams and how she drove right there? Like, I think that, and I could be wrong, I think if you were to line up 20 kids that play at this level, maybe 4 or 5 of them may watch women's basketball on that level. That's a graceful number. Why do you think that is?
Yeah.
And how can we fix it? Because if we're saying we want the game to grow, we have to support it first. So, you know, where's the disconnect? Why is it that a lot of, you know, coaches and maybe women's basketball players would quickly turn on LeBron, but not turn on, you know, Diana Taurasi? How do we fix that?
Yeah, really good question. I actually was having this conversation just yesterday. I think there's a lot of layers to that question. And I think it starts with, you know, in our own space, in our own leadership, right? is, are we talking about it? Are we showing clips of our women? Like, so we're really strategic, even at camps. We do a film session with our camps and we show women's pro players. We show women's college players. Yes, sometimes we might show NBA, but we're not going to show NBA without showing WNBA and college women because of the exposure of that. You know, in our own team calendar, we'll put WNBA games in the calendar just as a reminder. I think, so us starting those conversations like you were with your players, sometimes they just need to know that the game is on and where they can find it and make it easier access. At a bigger picture level, you know, if you compare the women's game and the men's game, you know, there's decades of a gap when the women weren't playing. So if you look at, is our game on track compared to when the men started? You know, the men's NBA wasn't vastly successful at the beginning, right? They had to build. So I think in that sense, you know, are we where we need to be? And I often say to people that support women's basketball, can we speed that process up from what we know that the men's leagues did that was successful? And then the other one is exposure. How can you watch a game if it's not on a channel that is easy to access? So I think there's, you know, like I said, a lot of layers to how we improve that. And some of it starts with the individual leaders. And then some of it is at bigger picture levels. We need investors to invest. We need it to be on channels that people can see. You know, they've been putting a lot out about the New York Liberty has had really good attendance this year. And, you know, I'm sure they were strategic about that. And so let's learn from that and follow that model in other places. You know, I've been going to the Final Four ever since I was a high school coach because the convention has been there. And so I have a really hard time if somebody says, you know, well, people don't really want to watch. Well, I've seen a lot of people watch these big games and be really into it. So how do we expand that and continue to grow the game? I think it's, you know, a multi-level approach.
Mhm. Good answer, coach. So you become the head coach in Longwood. Why was it an ideal fit for you?
I think it started with, you know, was a Division I opportunity, right? Somebody that believed that, you know, I could lead a program. It was in my home state. I was familiar with the school. I hadn't been, which is a little crazy because I'd grown up in Virginia. You know, they had a good history of education in terms of training teachers. So a lot of my teacher friends had gone to Longwood. And I just felt like, you know, we can do it. I felt like what we had done at the high school level and what I'd learned through my time as an assistant in college, that we could do it. And then we just put our head down and work and went after a lot of incredible women who wanted to be the first ones to do something. So Longwood had a long history of being successful at Division II. And then when they made the transition to Division I, that was when, you know, they had to overcome challenges and find a way to do it. And so to get that many women, a lot of whom were Virginia natives, not all of them, but a lot, who said, we want to be the ones to take Longwood to the tournament for the first time. We want to be the ones to win a championship and hang a banner. And so that experience, you know, just from year one, we won 3 games, right? You know, if we had just gotten down on ourselves as a program and said, oh, you know, there were moments, I'll say, for any coaches, there were moments where I'm going, do I know anything about basketball anymore? Like, have I forgotten everything I ever learned? But that's the process, right? And when we won the championship, I thank those seniors from year one because we only won 3 games, right? Year one. But those women accepted what we were trying to do, our teaching methods, were positive about it. And because of that, they set the tone for the future moving forward to build what we were trying to build. And it was just an incredible experience, something I'll remember for the rest of my life. You know, both teams, men's and women's, went to the tournament for the first time. The town had a parade for our women and men when we got back, and just what an experience. And it was hard to leave. It wasn't an easy decision to say, I'm going to take the next step. You know, some people might have opinions about that or think that it was easy. It wasn't easy because you recruit those people to do that. And then we did it. And then because of that, I was given a lot of opportunity because of all the work that a lot of people did. So I'm very aware of that.
Yeah. 3 wins, 12 wins, 14 wins, 22 wins. You're doing something right. I'll tell you.
Yeah. Our women were working, and I have an
Yeah.
incredible staff that just pours into them every single day.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. the first year, first summer, first 1 or 2 summers are tough. They're tough, I think, because, you know, you're inheriting a team. They may not play the style you want to play.
Mhm.
Physically, they may not be where you want them to be. And mentally, they may not be where you want them to be too. So, um, in that first year or two, it's tone setting.
Mhm.
Tell me some things that you needed to adjust the tone with, or maintain, with that group, from a mental and physical side that you think because you laid that foundation then, it allowed you to be to the point in which you're a 22-win team a
Yeah.
couple years from now.
Yeah, I think there were a couple things, everywhere you go, a program has a reputation for right or wrong. Sometimes they're accurate and sometimes they're not. I think one of the things when we first got to Longwood was we needed to have a presence. We need to have a presence on campus, and in the community in how we serve and how we interact with other people. And sometimes when you're not having a lot of success, it's harder to be as outgoing and, put yourself out there because, you're struggling a little bit with your own confidence about how well are we doing right now. And so I remember one conversation with our women and one of our assistant coaches at the time early on at Longwood, and they said about the things that we were doing, well, yeah, this really feels like Division 1. And we're saying to them, guys, you are Division 1. But I think that was the confidence, right? The confidence was lacking because they hadn't had as much success yet winning. And so they were saying, oh, well, but no, guys, you are Division 1. You've been Division 1 the whole time. And so those were some of the steps early on. And then I think teaching toughness, like it's one of our core values as a program. And you've already heard me talk about it once. I think teaching kids how to be tough and young women how to be tough, is something that we spend a lot of time doing, whether it's in our drill development. You've probably heard we do something called Toughness with the Marine Corps in the preseason, where we work with Marines on Friday mornings at 6 a.m. I'm actually going to be working on that planning here today after you and I get off. Those types of things, all those things are a foundation for what we were able to do in year 4. But, they often say culture development takes 3 years, right? And people study it all over the world. How can you speed it up? Companies, teams, how do you speed up that culture development? And I think we're constantly looking at ways to speed it up while also knowing that genuine relationships take time to build. And so we're in the middle of that process right now, right? Building authentic, trusting relationships with our women so that we can then challenge them to another level, to access another level.
You figured it out. Like I said before, you went to the WBI this year, had a special group, very successful season, and then you are offered the job at St. Louis. So what made that school an ideal fit for you at this time?
Yeah. It's so funny because, one of the first schools I talked to wasn't St. Louis, and it was in the Midwest. And I was like, I'm not quite sure that's the geographic region I'm looking for. And then here I am in St. Louis, not far from another university. I think it's always about the people and the place, right? So the people here, the leadership, with our athletic director, Chris May, and our deputy athletic director, Dr. Janet Oberly, what we're trying to do really aligns. And you hear them say that, their core values, what they're trying to do are the same things that I've been trying to do throughout my career. And we laugh that sometimes we don't use the exact same words, right? The mission is the same. And the other thing was, I always said, if I was going to leave Longwood, it would be for more opportunities for women. And I am confident that St. Louis University will provide more opportunities for our women. And so that ultimately was the draw. And then there is a competitive side to me of, can we do it again? Right? Like, I love to be tested. I love challenges. It would have been comfortable to stay and look to repeat, and that has its own challenges. This is a big challenge, to move our family halfway across the country and try to take a team to the NCAA tournament for the first time. And that's a big challenge, and that's what we're trying to do.
Awesome, awesome. I don't want to mispronounce this word. RET.
RTA, RTA.
So let's talk about that and how it connects to your coaching style.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. So RTA, which if anyone's watching, that's the British pronunciation, because that's where I watched a video and heard it said first. So the gentleman who actually inspired it for us is a naval officer, former naval officer. He wrote a book and we worked together while we were at Navy, and he sent me a copy of the book. And I read the book, and in the book, he talks about the concept of arete. And arete means excellence of any kind and the act of living up to one's full potential. And I say this to our teams all the time. The act means you have to do it over and over and over again. And that's truly what the path to excellence is. And it has a character base to it as well, right? So it's not just about achievement. It's about achievement while caring for people, while doing it, what we would say is, the right way to do it. So it's just this constant, we use mountains, to kind of symbolize it, right? Climbing to the top of the mountain, and there's going to be adversity along the way. But in our program, we want arete everywhere. And one of my favorite moments when we had taught it, and, whenever something starts to sink into the culture of either your teaching or your program, the players inevitably use it back on you. And that's when, it's actually kind of getting in there. And we had a player say to us, well, don't you want me to arete in that as well? And we're like, yes, we do. We want you to arete in all aspects of life. And that's when you kind of knew that it really stuck with them. And so we will use that as well as a foundation here.
Personal accountability versus collective. Can you explain collective to me?
Yeah.
And, maybe give me an example, because I've heard the personal, but a lot of people don't talk about the collective side of it. Is equally as important, if not more important, understanding the importance of being a part of a group and excelling within your role. So tell me about collective and maybe an example if you could think of one.
Yeah. You got some good questions today. So collective.
I'm trying, Coach. I'm trying. I'm long-winded. I know. I'm a long-winded.
No, this is good research. Good research, and you're pulling some stuff out of me that some other people have not. Collective responsibility I stole from Coach Krzyzewski. When I was a young coach, my dad said, if you want to be great, then go read about great coaches. And I studied Coach Krzyzewski, Pat Summitt, Gino Auriemma, studied all those guys, read everything I could get my hands on. I was telling somebody the other day, I would get things that were out of print, right? I have something from Coach K's that wasn't even printed anymore because I was just so eager to learn as much as I could. So to me, collective responsibility is, yes, you have a personal accountability to our team, but as we stand in this circle before practice of women, you also have responsibility for the woman next to you, the woman across from you, and that collective responsibility is critical to our long-term success in this organization. Well, the story I'm going to give you is a little insider look at that team from last year that was so great. So within our team, we have a leadership group, and they'll meet with me and other staff that are interested in leadership with them. And we'll have meetings once every 2 weeks or so. We'll discuss different leadership topics. Sometimes they have nothing to do with basketball. Sometimes they do. And so we're in a meeting last year. Now I've been with these women, all of them at least 3 years, some of them 4 years in this meeting. And they say, we want to talk about our core values. Now, core values are pretty, you spend a lot of time deciding on them as a staff and a program. And 2 high-level players on our team say to me, we want to talk about collective responsibility and whether or not we're going to keep that as a core value. Now, inside as a coach, now, as a young coach, that might have made me nervous, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, they want to change a core value. What are we teaching on it? As a veteran coach, I'm like, I love this. First of all, I love that they have a passion about it and want to debate and discuss it. The second thing, I'm like, that is the value that I would never even consider changing. It will be with me the rest of my career until I'm done coaching. And when I'm retired, I'll probably be teaching people about it. And so inside, I'm like, they picked the wrong one, right, to go after. But also shows the camaraderie within the staff and the team and the leadership that we can even have those levels of discussions. The reason they wanted to talk about it is because they think that sometimes when one person makes an error on a team, right, that the whole team shouldn't have a consequence for that. And, I really make those decisions on a case by case basis. I'm a one rule coach. I'm not let's have a bunch of rules and then here's the consequence for each one, because I think leaders should lead. And in those moments as leaders, we have to make the best decision for the team, given all the information and factors. But that was their main sticking point, right? If somebody's late for something, why should an entire team have to run? Which probably happened to them once in their 3-year career, but they're really holding on to that moment. So anyway, collective responsibility to me is we're all responsible to the team, all of us. And on all matters related to basketball, the team is going to come first. There are a few moments where the individual, right, caring deeply about people, that something that's going on with an individual is actually the highest priority for the team at that time. But in basketball matters, it's the team. And so collective responsibility is that personal accountability, and then also holding your teammate to a high standard. We had a really, really great sports performance coach with us at Longwood who also reads a lot and studies a lot. And she talked, and we use this now. You always hear people say, you got to be willing to call out your teammate, call out your teammate. And she just changed the wording on that. And she said, why don't we say call up our teammate, right? Call them up to the next level, to the next task, call them up to excellence, to arete. And so that's something that we utilize here. It doesn't have to have a negative connotation to call someone up. You're actually doing what's best for them in that moment. Oh, you got me going.
Awesome, coach. Awesome. That's for sure. That's for sure. I love it. Couple more questions, not too much longer. So the interview process, get the job at Longwood, get the job at St. Louis. I'm sure that it was a different dynamic of questions and people you're dealing with and things like that. Tell me, two-part question. Tell me the hardest question it was for you to answer, and tell me one question that you think you have to be able to answer. Because, every program, people say, oh, you got to come with your mission statement and your portfolio and you're this and you're that. And then, but you get into the room and they're going to throw something at you. They're going to throw something at you that you better be able to answer. And what was on curveball they threw, you're like, wow, I wasn't expecting them to ask me that. I hope I got that right. Or probably you felt like I didn't answer that right. Just what I put through those two jobs.
So one of the questions I got, and I need to ask this leader if they were trying to get me going, because I feel like the leader was trying to get me going, like kind of get at my competitive side. But basically it was a question that was not in line with kind of who I feel like I represent myself as from the core of me. And I think it was to see, like, is that who she is? And it was a question around people that say I, my, and me versus we, are, and us, right? And I think if you research any of my work, you see that I use the words we, are, and us way more frequently. Now in an interview, they're asking about your goals and your vision. And so sometimes in an interview, you have to go back and forth because they're, asking what you're going to do as an individual. So that question got me going. Like I could feel the competitive fire in me kind of rising up a little bit. That no, I believe to be successful, it has to be about the group in a team environment. And so that was a question that got me going. And then I think one that you have to be able to answer well and is asked everywhere is, kind of what is your vision, whether that's short-term, long-term, what are your values? How do you consistently convey that to the interview, the people assigned to talk to you throughout the entire course of a day? These head coach interviews are long. They're with a lot of different people and a lot of constituents that support the program. So you have to be prepared to be on point with that throughout the day and enthusiastically represent what you're trying to do. Now, one thing that I was taught by my dad and my mentors is you're interviewing them too. And I think sometimes we forget that when we get in those roles. You're interviewing because if you choose to go somewhere that's not a fit, that will inhibit the success of your program because you didn't do the research to make sure it was a great fit. So I had some mentors early on when I was getting ready to do head coaching interviews. There were other head coaches at Division I that shared with me the questions they asked. And so I'm really strategic in my preparation before the interview about what questions am I going to ask all the people that I meet. And I ask for a list ahead of time, because those answers are going to help me decide if this is a great fit. Is this a place where the way that I teach and the way that I lead and the way that the staff that comes with me leads, that we're going to be successful? So I think that's a really key element for people to remember as well.
We've talked a lot about a lot of good things, a lot of the good. Let's talk about the bad. Let's talk about a rough patch. Let's talk about those things that are like, you got that fork in the road moment in which you're like, this may not work for me. This may not be it. And I think it's a little bit different for you because you come from a different background of like that basketball lineage where your dad was a coach, things like that. So I think you kind of have a different mental approach or vision to the process and understanding the ups and downs, but it doesn't mean you're not human.
Right.
We have those moments. Tell me one, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
It could be financial, it could be location wise, you're away from your family, it could be, long hours and how that affected your family, whatever the case may be. Kids, the kids in the program that made it tough. Give us one or two of those things and how you handled it. How'd you get to the point you are today? Because we're all as people going to go through those moments.
Yeah, I can think of two that really stand out. One is when I went to IUP. That was the first time I left Virginia. And so I'm 4 hours from the family. We did some unique things as parents to, take care of our kids and maintain our finances. So that was a real challenge, and I had to really work through that throughout the year. And ultimately was the reason that I left IUP was the location. Not, I love the school, I love working with Tom. It put a lot of strain on the family. And then you look fast forward, now I'm halfway across the country. So that definitely prepared me for this time. And then the second one is, it's not easy to leave a program. So leaving Longwood and leaving those women who agree to go on that journey with us. And while I feel that as a staff, we fulfilled, right, what we were all trying to do together, we ultimately won the championship and had a great experience as a group. People don't always feel great about that when you leave. And I can understand how players could feel like she left, like she was supposed to be here. She was the one that was going to be my college coach. So that's difficult. And I do think about that, and it's not easy. And I know that players have a lot of freedom to move now with the transfer portal. And we as coaches have always had freedom to move within our contracts. But that is a real challenge when you change positions that, has emotion behind it. And people might just see the pictures or the interviews or those things. And it's hard to leave people that you love and that you did something special with.
Last question, Coach. I see St. Louis, you guys play Davidson. I watched the game. It's awesome. St. Louis wins. I'm walking back to my car. I put the key in the car and I think this. St. Louis is this. What do you want to come into my mind? It's going to permeate into my mind. St. Louis is this type of team. What is St. Louis?
I think what I want all of our teams to ever be described as is smart and tough. And the way we get smart is that we teach. And I think that is what all the people that work with me, first of all, half of us are literally trained teachers. We all study to be teachers. And so we want to teach people how to play the game. And I always say, if someone comes through our program, I want them, if they want to, I want them to be able to go coach an AAU team, coach a high school team, coach a college team, coach a pro team, coach at any level, because we've taught them about the game enough that they could go be successful in those spaces. And then tough, right? If we're going to go down, if we're not going to be successful in a game, then we're going to go down swinging. We're going to go down trying as hard as we can. We're going to dive on the floor. We're going to do anything we can to try to compete at the highest level. So smart and tough, whether we win or lose, you walk away going, that team's smart and they're tough. They might not have gotten that one, or they got that one and they got it because they're smart and tough.
Mhm. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so this is your time. Is there anything I missed you want to share? It could be about a podcast, family question that I may have missed that you're like, you know what, Christian, I wish you would have asked me that question. Anything in that nature, because I ask the questions, but it's also about what you want to talk about too. So,
Yeah, I think just the transfer portal is such a hot topic for everybody right now. And
I was gonna ask you about that,
yeah,
coach, but I was like, I had
yeah.
a bunch, but
No,
go ahead.
I'm passionate about it. The student athletes deserve choice, and they have for a really, really long time. And I'm so glad that they got it. And, I think each coach is going to have to find their way, but I do think there's too much negativity surrounding it. Like, life is about change and learning and growing. And so this is the space that we're in now. And in my opinion, we should have had this opportunity for student athletes for a long time. So I think the coaches that are going to be the most successful, and the players, are going to be the ones that can adapt. And, I've heard some coaches say, and I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way. I think there's a right and wrong way for each coach and each program. So for me, the way that we develop programs, we're always going to need to recruit freshmen. Some programs are saying, I'm only going to recruit out of the transfer portal because I can get experienced players. And that's fine. I think you'll see us at St. Louis take a balanced approach. We're definitely going to utilize the transfer portal and find players that, just need a different environment or a different home to be successful in. But we're also still going to recruit freshmen hard, because I think if you do a good job as a group and you make it a place where the student can see the long-term growth and be really successful, that what a young woman who commits to staying for 4 years can give back to a program in a university is invaluable. So we're going to continue to recruit in that space as well. But I just don't think there should be as much negativity around it. Student athletes have choice, and it's on us to create great environments that they want to stay in. And if it's not the right environment for them or for us, then yeah, you have the freedom to move. So I am passionate about that.
Awesome, awesome. One of these days, we're gonna have a group discussion of many Division I coaches about that, and I'll just throw things at you guys, little bombs, and I'll get out of the way and get under the table and let you guys get after it. So I
I'm
think
sure we would get passionate in that discussion.
yeah, I think that's definitely something that you could dedicate a whole hour to with people, and they just love to talk about it. So
For
I'll
sure.
keep it in mind, Coach. I'll definitely keep it in mind.
Thank
Um,
you.
well, Coach, I really do thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, and you have a fan in me. I'll be watching you guys play. So you have a good one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thanks for all you do to grow our game.
No problem. Thank you.